Good evening and welcome to the February 27th meeting of the Civil Service Commission. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Manukian.
Here.
Commissioner Gazarian.
Here.
Chair Devine.
Here.
For the record, Commissioners Gantis and Hatamian are absent tonight.
Fine, thank you. Next item, please.
Minutes.
Move to approve and dispense from reading. Second.
That's unanimous consent. Next item, please.
Oral communications.
I have no cards. Does anybody in the audience wish to address the Commission on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Recruitment and examination report.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is your recruitment and examination status report showing the current recruitment activity from the members of my staff. Again, a similar level of workload. You see a lot of various positions there that are various stages of recruitment. We have the open date, the close date, and any examinations that happen to be scheduled. You will note at the top we have Chief Information Officer, which is the one executive recruitment that we're doing right now. That's moving along quite well. Next week we'll be conducting a multi-phase interview process for that, and hopefully following that have a new individual on board. Other than that, if you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Any questions?
None.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Eligible lists established.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, these are the eligible lists that have been established since our last meeting. We have a total of 5. 2 of them are promotional, 2 are open. 1 is promotional and open. So you can see the open recruitments tend to have the higher number of applications. In the far right column, you have the total number of people who've made it through to the eligible list for these recruitments. You see it's a very small number in many cases, and indicative of the challenging nature of our selection process. You see some of these lists have as few as 1 name on them. Anyway, this too is a open file report. If you have questions, be happy to try and answer them.
Any questions?
No.
Next item.
Class specification for approval, risk and insurance services manager.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is a class specification for approval. It's a new classification, risk and insurance services manager. This position is arising out of some of the restructuring that occurred last year, where we had the retirement incentive and a lot of people left the organization. In the risk management section, it was formerly located in Finance Department, with part of it under Human Resources. We had 2 retirements of 2 very key management individuals in that operation, and we're reorganizing that function to now really combine the roles of those 2 individuals into one management level position. The name of the position will now be Risk and Insurance Services Manager, and this will encompass all of the areas traditionally associated with risk management, including work comp, safety, general claims, liability, insurance procurement, claims administration, and such. The reorganized function will now be half in the Human Resources Department and half in the City Attorney's Office. Supervisory responsibilities will be shared between myself and Ms. Maurer from the City Manager's Office. I'm sorry, the City Attorney's Office. So the specification is before you. If you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them, myself and Ms. Maurer as well.
Any questions?
Move to approve. Second.
Unanimous consent. Next item, please.
Eligible list cancellation, community service officer records.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, we're bringing you something that we don't do very often, but there are 2 items separate. The first is a request to cancel eligibility list. And I say 2 items because the next item on the agenda is a similar request. But the first one is for the list that we had established back in May of 2011. So this list of community service officer / records, obviously this is in the police department. It deals with the staffing of the record bureau. Essentially, periodically we end up with lists that have need to be refreshed. In this case, we have a list that has almost reached its 2-year duration. At some point in the very near future, we'd like to commence a new recruitment because we anticipate some openings. With this existing list, again, that was established nearly 2 years ago, not a great deal of success in actually bringing on individuals here. We had 32 candidates make the list, and this was an open recruitment. We were only able to successfully hire 2 off of that list. We, as the staff report indicates, we had 8 on this list fail background investigation. We had 7 waive consideration, and 3 withdrew completely. And then we have an additional 2 that were considered but not selected under our rule of 3. Given the fact that we had so many unique problems here, mainly background related, at the top end of the list, we're about to the 22nd name on this list, and we'd like to start anew with this. Pursuant to the Commission's rules, we do notify those candidates remaining on the list, and we inform them that this list is subject to cancellation. The Civil Service Commission, anyone objecting to that would have the ability to show up here and state their concerns. So with that, our request would be to cancel this list so we can begin improvement. If you have questions, be happy to try and answer them. We have staff from the police department here as well as Mr. Kwan from my staff.
I have one question. Would the cancellation be effective immediately, or would it run its course to the 2-year anniversary of the date it was established?
Commissioner Kazarian, it would be effective immediately.
Okay. No more questions.
Okay.
Move to approve?
Second.
Then we have unanimous consent, and we'll move on to the next item.
Eligible list cancellation, payroll specialist 2.
Mr. Doyle?
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, similar to the previous item, we are requesting a cancellation of the payroll specialist list. Similar request, but different situation. This too was an open recruitment, however, much smaller applicant pool and a much smaller list. In this case, we had a total of 7 who made the list, and due to some rather unusual turnover within our payroll section, we ended up hiring 4 people off this list. Some succeeded in the job, some did not, some left, and we are at the point where we are almost at full capacity, but we believe we may have to recruit some more for this particular position. But essentially, the 7 names on the list, we've hired 4. We have 3 remaining. 2 of those we have already interviewed before and not selected. The other is waived. So essentially, we technically do not have 3 names that we like to provide that operating department. So therefore, we are asking that this list be considered for cancellation as well.
Any questions?
Questions?
Yes. I thought I heard you say that we need to hire more. Did I hear you correctly? We need to hire more.
We will anticipate needing to hire anew once again.
Will we then reestablish a list, or how would we go about that?
If Commissioner Kazarian, if the Commission does agree to cancel this list, then we would start with a new recruitment process and consider new candidates for that.
Okay.
We have a motion.
Move to approve?
Second.
We have unanimous consent on that one. And move on to the next item, please.
Agenda forecast,
Mr. Doyle?
Mr. Chair, the agenda forecast is really a note and file item, just indicating what items are coming up for our upcoming meetings. On March 13th, which is our next scheduled meeting, we anticipate having staff from the Verdugo Fire Communications Center here to talk about their operation and some of the unique nuances of Verdugo Fire Communications Center. We also will be having deliberations that evening for another one of our civil service cases, a closed case. And outside of that, I'm sure we'll have other business for the commission. For the next meetings after that, we don't have anything as of yet, but as you know, there are 2 hearings that are in progress, and as I continually say, you folks have been kept very busy with work in that area. So, again, if you have questions, be happy to try and answer them, and we can entertain any other items you'd like to place on upcoming agendas.
Okay, any questions on the agenda forecast?
No.
And both commissioners will be here, including myself, on the 13th. No conflict there?
I want a raise.
Double your pay.
Agreed.
So far.
Okay. Put us in ink.
So far.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you know if something changes.
Okay. Very good. Then we'll move on to the next item.
Reports, past due employee performance evaluations.
Okay, we're going to carry that over till the 13th.
And I do want to note for the record, this report was amended. There should be a report on the dais there.
We have that, and we'll take a look at it next meeting.
Okay.
Next, please.
Civil Service Commission, staff comments.
Any comments from the commissioners? Seeing none. Staff? Seeing none. Next item, please.
Closed session, 2 items in closed session. Item 1, public employee appointment, lower qualifications transfer. Item 2, public employee appointment, appeal of occupational medical standards disqualification.
Okay, we will be going to closed session on this, and we will be going off television. We will be reporting out, but not on TV, as to the adjudication of these 2 items. So at this point, we will close the meeting, go into